Conditionals normally work like this. They start with the word if. But to be advanced with your English at a C1 English or C2 English level, you need to know alternatives, different ways of saying things. And here's one different way of expressing a sentence with a conditional meaning. So instead of saying, if you eat old food, you could say, eating old food will make you sick. So here, the change is from a verb into a subject. We take the verb eat and we make that the subject of our sentence. Eating, adding the ing makes it the noun. And here we don't need if. We can simply say, eating old food will make you sick. And we still have the conditional sense of meaning. Here's some more examples. Imagine if you study hard, you will pass the exam. That's usually true, isn't it? But using this ing change with the verb, we could say studying hard will mean you pass the exam. And here mean is the new verb we introduce to express the relationship between the parts of the sentence. Or, if she gets the job, we will celebrate tonight. Is that what you would do if you got a new job? But you could also say this, getting the job will mean celebrating tonight. Now, this change tends to work where the verb is expressing an activity. So studying and getting are both activity verbs. If the verb is being used in a state sense, so for description, then it's perhaps best not to use this change. But it's good if you have activity verbs. But we want more alternatives, don't we? And here's a second one. Eating old food leads to you getting sick. Here, instead of will, we use lead to. And again, we don't need the if part here. So here again, we have the subject with the ing form. We've introduced leads to, which expresses the relationship between the first part and the second part. Leads to expresses there's a consequence between the first part, eating old food, and getting sick. And then the object at the end, here the get has changed into the ing form as well. So we just have this one verb form here, leads to. Here's some more examples. If you run for an hour, you will become tired. It's true of me, definitely. I don't think I could even run 10 minutes. Could you? But if you did, you could say this. Running for an hour leads to you becoming tired. So the same change using leads to. Something important here. This structure is used when the same thing always happens. So running for an hour will probably, unless you're a great athlete, will probably always lead to you becoming tired. And we sometimes call this the zero conditional. And I know that even advanced learners sometimes have to think again, what's the difference between zero conditional and first conditional? Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but just in case, here's a quick recap. The zero conditional means this. You always have the same outcome. If you run for an hour, you become tired. Here we don't use will. The first conditional, if you run for an hour, you will become tired. Here we do use the word will. The difference is that we are giving a prediction for a specific event. So zero conditional, always the same result or consequence. First conditional, we're looking at one thing and the prediction about one thing. Back to our example then, and there's something else to know that's important. You can only use this when the subject is in both clauses is the same. So if you run for an hour, you will become tired. So notice we have you in both parts here, the same subject. Why is that important? Because we did not use you in the first part of our clause with running for an hour. Running for an hour, is the subject. There's no sense of you. And we only know it refers to you because we have you in the second part of the sentence. However, if the subjects were different, then the you in the second part of the sentence wouldn't describe the subject in the first part. So the subject, you, and you needs to apply to both parts of the original if sentence. Here's alternative 3. We could also use this. The reason for followed by is as the verb. Let's see how it works with our rotten apple. The reason for getting sick is eating old food. The reason for getting sick is eating old food. So we've switched the order here. Remember, eating old food used to be in the beginning. Now it's at the end. Getting sick has moved to the beginning. The reason for getting sick is eating old food. Again, we have this ing form. So we've changed the verbs into nouns using ing. And that means we need a new verb. And the new verb is. Here we don't need a verb to express the change between, or the consequence between the two parts of the sentence, because the reason for tells us that there's going to be that kind of relationship between the two parts. More examples is always useful. Has this ever happened to you? Oh, it's happened to me so many times. If the bus doesn't come, you will be late. And I remember very well standing at bus stops waiting for buses. Change it with the reason for, and we come up with this. The reason for being late is the bus not coming. Notice to make the negative form with the noun, we don't use nt at the end. We have to say not, followed by the noun form coming, because we've got the come has now become the noun form through ing. So it has to be not followed by the noun. Important things to notice here is that, again, both verbs have become nouns. Notice that in the if sentence, the second part was you will be late. How do we convert be into the noun? The same as other verbs. We can use being. So being kind of creates an activity out of the verb to be, but it means really the state of this situation is describing something happening at that time. You're late. It's happening at that time. If you're being late, that is what's happening now. So we can do that with be as well in certain situations. Here's alternative 4. Perhaps the simplest change. We can simply use should. Should you eat bad food, you will get ill. Just a small change here. Notice that eat is the infinitive of the verb here. So we wouldn't necessarily change it if we had to for other reasons. But the structure is the same as the if sentence. Should followed by a clause. Then in the second part, the subject followed by will followed by the clause. Now the example I'm going to show you shows more clearly the difference because of the infinitive form. Consider this sentence, again, something a lot of us are familiar with. If the road is closed, we will take another one. My road on my street is closed at the moment. It's causing me so many problems. But we could certainly say this. If the road is closed, we will take another one. Change it to the should form. Should the road be closed, we will take another one. And this shows clearly how we use the infinitive after should. Because the infinitive is be. So should the road be closed? Not should the road is closed. Because after should, we need the infinitive. So this is a key difference between the should form and the if form. Here's one more alternative. Use the phrase the result of. Getting ill will be the result of eating bad food. The structure here is we have getting in the ing form, followed by will be, then the result of, and then the object. But again, eating has now become the ing form. The verb has changed from eat to eating. Another example, if you work hard, you will finish early. It's true in some jobs, not all jobs. If it's true in your job, well, perhaps you're lucky to have a job where you can do that. I don't think it happens in most jobs. But let's imagine it's true. If you work hard, you will finish early. Let's change that using the result of. Finishing early will be the result of working hard. This is another structure that is best used when the same result always happens. So zero conditional. One thing always leads to another. Not always, though. You can use it as a first conditional. For example, finishing early will be the result of working hard today. And that makes it specific to this situation. Mainly second conditional, first conditional still possible too. And if you want more alternatives in advanced English grammar more widely, click on the link in the description to get to my longer advanced English grammar course.